Everybody, this is the first crew of what will be several, and welcoming and we are going to start by taking a look at who we think, before we get to the games that's coming up this week, who we think will win overall. Boom. Starting with the AFC East, and for those people who are watching this, I will enlarge this by a factor of 1, 2, and 3. 3 there. Okay. AFC East. Let's start with Bill, and gentlemen, keep your takes succinct, and for the or Bill, AFC East.
Okay, so while the Bills I think still are top, the AFC East, the pack has narrowed the gap on them. I think that they're probably about an 11 or 12 win team. The Dolphins are heavy on their heels, probably maybe a game behind. They might even tie for record, but they might win the overall tiebreaker due to maybe head to head. Then I think the Jets are third. The Patriots are probably right above 500 as well. I think it's a very closely packed division. I think 3 games separate all 4 teams.
I'm somewhat similar. I have the Bills as the best team in that division at 12-5. I think with how good the Jets were last year and the addition of Aaron Rodgers, I think they're going to be like a 10-11 win team. Dolphins, I think, will be the same. I think they'll just be behind the Jets. And the Patriots, I think, are going to be like a 7, 8, 9 win team. Like they're not going to be it's going to be a tough division. Like the fact that the last place team will be like an 8-win team is so remarkable. But I still think the Patriots, in terms of pure roster, even though they obviously have the best coach in that division, I think based on the way it looks, I have the Patriots last, then the Dolphins, then the Jets, and then the Bills at top, with the Jets as one of the wild card teams. What about you, Zennie?
As much as I want to go with the Bills, I'm going to do that. I'm going to go with the Bills, and I have no compelling reason to go against them. Their defensive coaches have the offense among other offense. Running game works this year. Yeah, but my choice is also based on the fact that the Patriots are really in a state of flux. They went through wild quarterback changes. They don't seem to have focused on just a fundamental approach. They seem like they're constantly searching for the right scheme fit, the right set of plays and formations. And I have a feeling that they're going to be that way for the next 6 games of the season to start. The Jets, yes, have Aaron Rodgers. Yes, have the defense. Yes, have the coaches. I think that the Jets can actually overtake the Bills, but I'm not willing to say indefinitely they will. So I'll say the Jets are going to be a close second, followed by the Dolphins in third, and followed by the Patriots.
We're mostly the same on that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now that gets us to the AFC, what Chris Berman used to call the Norse division. No, he didn't. Yeah, but he meant that for the other one, because that has nothing to do with Norse people. Bless you. So I'll just forget Chris Berman, and I'll just use my term for it. I hate the Steelers. Enough. I'm a Raiders fan. Oakland Raiders. So anyway, here we are. Having said all that, since Bill went before, Vinny, why don't you start us off with the North?
Okay, I think the AFC North is going to be the toughest division in football, and I could realistically see all these teams having a record of 500 or above. I see it being really that good. The Bengals, I think, will win the division again, but I think it's going to be very, very close this time. They're going to be separated by a tiebreaker or like one game. The Steelers, I think, have been the most improved team from this year to last year. Mind you, it's been 16, 17 straight years where the Steelers have been 500 or above. Absolutely unbelievable. Mike Tomlin is easily a Hall of Famer. If you disagree, go away. But I think Kenny Pickett's going to have a big year two. I think this connection with George Pickens is going to be better. I think their defense has gotten better. I think they're a clear number 2. And as for number 3, I think they're also a playoff team, the Baltimore Ravens. I like what they did a little bit on the offense, but I think compared to the Bengals, the Steelers, they're just a bit behind. And for the Cleveland Browns, they're in 4th, but this is not so much because, they're a bad Cleveland Browns. It's just because the strength of that division. I think in terms of a roster, I think the Browns are slightly below the other 2 teams. So I have the Bengals win the division and the Steelers and Ravens as wild card teams, and the Browns as last place and missing the playoffs.
All right. I'll just say it straight out. As much as I want to say the Steelers are going to run away with it, I'm going to say the Steelers will win the division, closely followed by the Browns, then the Ravens, and then the Bengals. And I said that because I believe that the window for the Bengals is closed. The quarterbacks are injured. They, in my view, haven't sufficiently reloaded to a point where they have enough new talent to cause new schemes to expect a different type of less predictable attack. Now, I love the fact that their approach to football is highly analytical, and that will save them a number of instances. But I believe the Steelers rediscovering their running games will be the story of the AFC North. But the Browns, and I'm almost tempted to say the Browns will overtake them. I really am. What stops me is that I am not sold on their current head coach as being the guy that's the key to get them to the promised land. I am sold on the view that they've got the best quarterback in the division. And I think that Deshaun Watson is outstanding. Is an outstanding quarterback. The Texans did the best job with him. I have this fear that the Browns are not going to surpass that, and it's doable, okay? But that's my choice. Steelers, Browns, the Ravens, and the Bengals. And that's I can't help, and I'm hesitant because I love Katie Blackburn. She's the executive vice president, and she's Paul Brown's daughter and a friend of mine. So it pains me. And you say, how did I know her? Long story short, I met her at my first NFL owners meeting ever, Wilson Cocktail Party on the 1st of November, 1999 in Chicago. That was my first NFL owners meeting. And then the last time I talked with her was actually last year at the Minority Symposium. We had a good, long, laughable conversation about a lot of things I won't go into. Anyway, so it pains me to do that because I love the Bengals organization. I really do. It's not a knock on the organization. I just can't call it any other way right now. I'm happy to be wrong. All right.
Well, you, Bill?
I think the team that's done the most to improve their roster from last year to this year is actually the Ravens. And Steelers are second in my mind. And I hate to say that because I'm a Steelers fan. But the Ravens looked at their weakness and made it into a strength. And when they brought in Odell Beckham Jr., some people said, he's injury prone, he's older now. Well, he's going to be a wide receiver 3 most likely. Rashad Bateman's going to emerge as a wide receiver 1. And everyone who's involved in the fantasy football industry knows that Zay Flowers is going to quickly become one of the best young slot receivers in football. Yeah. So you're going to see the Ravens become a balanced, very difficult offense to deal with because Coach Monken is going to take all of those. He's going to keep, because he's not a fool, he's going to keep some of those really effective run scheme things that Greg Roman did. But what he's going to do so much better than Greg Roman is create space in the passing game. For whatever reason, Greg Roman just seemed either unwilling or unable to do that. That is something I'm going to do now. So I think
unwilling.
Yes, well, whichever it was. I think they're a 12-5 team. I think that closely on their heels, you'll have both the Bengals and Steelers. I think both those are double-digit win teams, and it'll just come down to head-to-head once again, or margin of victory, or whatever it is they use as a tiebreaker. I think they might both be 10-win teams. And I guess, gun placed against my temple, I guess I would go Steelers. I like their defense slightly more because of the losses that the Bengals had in free agency, including Jesse Bates. But the Browns will also be a very competitive team this year. I'm thinking about an 8 or 9 win team, most likely 8. But they'll be right there. They're going to win some games that people don't think they'll win, but they'll also lose some games that people don't think they'll lose. They have a terrific defensive front, the best defensive front. There's some good defenses, but they have the top defensive front. They have a very fine quarterback. They have one receiver I truly trust. And I think Mr. Cooper, be hanging with Mr. Cooper. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones will have a bit of a breakout, but there's a drop between 1 and 2, and then a big drop off the table between 2 and 3. So I think Elijah Moore is an effective slot receiver, but I don't know. You Rob Stefanski. Stefanski seems to struggle with making use effectively. Now, maybe that changes, of mismatches you can create in the slot. For whatever reason, that's what people like Sean Payton build their whole offense around, right? The Chargers built almost their entire offense around forcing you to react to mismatches in the slot. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers did a great job with it. For whatever reason, the Browns have not done a great job with it. I think that Chubb will still be very effective. Obviously, Kareem Hunt is still out there on the streets for whoever wants him, which shows you the state of the NFL in terms of what we think of running backs. When a guy like Hunt is going to basically have to take pennies on the dollar of what he's actually worth to get signed. But the Browns are not quite good enough as a roster and in terms of scheme to compete with the other teams above
them. Mm-hmm. And I have to add, folks, that I invited Vanessa. Vanessa would kill me. Melissa would kill me if she heard me say. I invited Melissa to join us. She'll be able to join us on Wednesday. Melissa's a huge Ravens fan, goes to all the games and everything. So it would have been interesting to see her her take on all of this. Moving forward, or is it backward? AFC South. Ooh, this is exciting. And so since we got Bill first, then Vinny, I guess that leaves me, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right. This is going to be fascinating. This is going to be interesting. This is going to be, and I have to say it, I really believe that the Jaguars are going to run away with this division right here. And the reason is I'm really sold on Doug Peterson as a coach. I think he's done wonders with his quarterback. Their defense is gelling. And you've got the Texans have a new, albeit I think will do very well, and may even shock us, everybody, and overtake the Jaguars. And that's DeMeco Ryans. The Colts, I think, are a question mark defensively as well as offensively. The Titans to me are just this weird enigma. They're at that point where that running game, they have some great young running backs. They are exciting offensively. But I'm not going to pick them last. I will pick them. In fact, what I'll do is I'll go this. I'm going to go right here. Jaguars, Titans, Texans, Colts. There we go. Yeah. Jaguars, Titans, Texans, Colts. There we are. So if you're penalizing new head coaches, and not intentionally, but there you go. Now the circle next. Vinny, you want to go next?
Yeah, I would have it the same way. I think the Jaguars are by far the best team in the division. They have by far the best coach. They have by far the best quarterback. They have by far. Well, I think this is a team that can honestly challenge the Chiefs for the AFC Championship game, and I truly do believe that. Then the Jaguars are going to run away with this division easily. As for the teams in that division, the Titans are the next best team, but they feel like a 7-8 win team. They feels like their playoff window is closed. I think this is going to be the last year for Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee, and he'll probably go somewhere else, or who knows. As for the other two, I have the Texans above the Colts, and a big reason why is because I like their defense better, and I like D'Amico Ryans better than the Shane Stidham. So because of that reason, I'm going to go with the Texans above the Colts. So I say Jaguars, Titans, Texans, Colts in that order. And what about you, Bill?
I'm going to agree with a lot of what was said. Disagree with one thing. I think that the Titans are a lot like the Steelers in a couple of different ways. One, they're going to run the ball a lot. But two, they're going to win games that people don't think they're going to win. They are well coached. They are mentally and physically tough. And while they're not the most exciting team to watch on either side of the ball, they're very technically sound on defense. And they still have a really exciting 1-2 punch running backs. I mean, Derrick Henry is probably in the last year or two of him being an elite level running back, but he's going to go out with a bang. And for those that aren't familiar, now obviously the dynasty draft community knows Tajay Spears quite well. And USC still has nightmares about Tajay Spears, but he is a dynamic presence in their offense. He catches the ball well out of the backfield. He's explosive. He can change directions on a dime. I compared him to Carnell Cadillac Williams when he was coming out of Auburn. Similar kind of running back. A little more compact, a little shorter, but same power and maybe even a little bit faster than Carnell was coming out. But they're going to win some close games. They're going to keep games close. If you keep games close, you have a chance to win close games, even against teams that should be, quote-unquote, better. So I still see the Titans as being a real contender. I think they might squeak their way into a playoff as a wild card team. Yes, everyone's the coronation of the Jaguars continues. I think they are going to be not quite as good as people think, though. I think that they're probably still about an 11-win team, but young teams, when they have a certain amount of success, sometimes I've seen it happen before where you hear how good you are, right? And young teams don't handle it as well as more established teams, it seems. Maybe I'm wrong. Coach Peterson is a really good coach. Maybe he'll manage to sort of drive into them that you can't, hear, you can't read your press clippings, you can't hear how good you are and start believing it. Also, I worry about them in terms of injuries at key positions. They have really good talent, but there's a good amount of drop off between their starters and their backups. So I worry about that also as well. They have been exposed in the past when starters have gone down, and unfortunately, it's football. You're going to lose people. I think the Colts will be better than people think. That still probably means 6 wins. So I'm not saying they'll be great, but I think they're going to be about a 6-win team. And I think the Texans will still be one of the top 5 teams drafting next year. So I think they're about a 5-win team. But they will look better. They will be in games. Look at what the Detroit Lions were a couple of years ago. That's what they'll be like. They'll be in games. They'll threaten teams. They'll scare teams. They'll find ways to lose, quite frankly, because that's what teams that aren't ready to win do. But you could see that they're going to be improving. And then this time next year, they'll be about an 8 or 9-win team.
All right. So there we are. And Bill, I want you, both of you, to help me with this. Why is it that we always talk about the Titans as possibly being in contention and they never turn the corner? And I have to go back to the coach. I think Vrabel does a great job of getting players that play well, but he doesn't seem to make the right combination of strategic and personnel decisions to get them the yards they need to win at key moments. There's always something that's a little off. Remember, I think it was against Kansas City, that game where he threw a fit talking about Vrabel. I think they had missed a penalty. Penalties is the other thing too. it's always something that just is a little off. Am I wrong?
I'm going to point to three things. They have a functioning, solid, middle of the pack quarterback. You can still win with that, but you need everything else to go close to perfectly right if you want to win a Super Bowl with, someone who is probably about the, 15th or so best quarterback in the league, 14th, somewhere in that range. So if you want to win it all with the 13th to 15th best quarterback in football, your defense has to stand on its head at times, like play out, lights out. Who's their best pass rusher? Quick, right? Solve for X. So when you don't have that mismatched player as a pass rusher, that means you have to scheme up pressure, which he certainly knows how to do coming off of the Belichick coaching tree or whatever, off the Belichick tree. But what does pressure mean? It also means that you're decreasing the number of coverage players you have. And who do they have to win against in the playoffs to win it all? The Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills. When you blitz those quarterbacks and you don't get there, what happens? That's what happens.
Yikes.
The other thing, when they let A.J. Brown, Arthur Brown Jr. got away from them, I would have found a way to keep that guy. There are certain players you just can't replace. He gave them balance in their offense because he was a guy you had to double cover. And Derrick Henry is a guy that made you keep an extra man in the box. What does that do to you schematically as a defense? You're double covering a receiver every time he comes out, and you got to keep one safety in the box. Somebody's running free. Your tight end, your slot receiver, your Z, somebody's just frolicking somewhere in the middle of your defense because you only have so many players that can cover. When you lose A.J. Brown, and now you can single cover everybody, now the numbers work. Now the math is mathing, as the kids like to say. Now the numbers are back normal again. You could still keep that extra man, an overhang defender or whatever, can still hang around close to the line of scrimmage without being worried about someone beating you over the top. Those are the things that mean that they can't close the deal against those top-tier teams in the AFC.
I've got okay. So do you want to add to that, Vinny? I found that the trades that the major trades somebody I may have missed, and you talked about Chris Moore, I believe. He agreed to terms with the Titans as wide receiver. Do you think that? But I noticed you didn't talk about the former number 10 of the Arizona Cardinals, who everybody forgot, right?
Well, I don't know if
everyone forgot about Derek and DeAndre.
Oh, no, I didn't forget about him, but he's a possession receiver. He doesn't force you to keep somebody deep. He's essentially a tight end in the way he runs routes. Look at his.
Right.
There's
but he's new. I mean, do you think that?
No, I didn't forget. I didn't forget about him.
Shout out to my friend Matt Harmon. Look at his website called Reception Perception, and you can see the usage.
I didn't say you did, Vinny.
Oh,
yeah. Me? I didn't talk about him.
You can see what essentially like a heat map of a receiver. Like
no,
where
Vinny, I
is
didn't
his
say
hot
you
zones.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if
yeah.
Vinny.
No, I didn't say you did. I was saying Bill.
Vinny, but
Titans.
I didn't forget about him, but he's essentially a tight end.
It is
the way he's used. I mean, he's a possession receiver. He's running almost all of his routes between 5 and 12 yards of the line of scrimmage. So that doesn't force you to keep somebody deep. That same overhang defender I just talked about can cover. That's different from what Arthur Brown Jr. brings to the table.
I think I know.
He was a legitimate deep threat.
Yeah. That should. Yeah. All right. So moving along, we could talk about that for a while. We now have the AFC West division. And so now, Hollywood Squares files style, we go with the man at the bottom, who's always at the top. Bill Carroll.
I feel like I should do a quick tribute to Paul Lynn. Savages. So I will start with the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. They're still Vegas betting odds to be back in the Super Bowl. I mean, odds-on favorite. The only real, burr under the saddle is, of course, the Chris Jones situation. At some point, he's going to have to come in and play. If he comes in and plays and he's not happy, does he play as well? I mean, all those things are but he's a professional. I think when he comes in, he'll play and play well, partially because if he does want to get traded, it increases his trade value if he plays well. But they have increased their talent level. They draft really well. Like, I don't know if people realize what a good drafter that front office, Brett Veach and his scouts, are amongst the best. They are amongst the best. They get good value from the beginning of the draft to the end of the draft. They got Isaiah Pacheco at the very end of the 7th round, and he's going to go for about 1,200 yards rushing with another 300 yards. He's going to have about 1,450 total yards this year, and they got him at the very end of the 7th round. They draft extremely well, which you have to, right? Because unless you want to spend a lot of money in free agency, which they tend not to, they spend a little bit, but they spend wisely usually. My only real questions about this team, one, obviously we talked about Chris Jones. Can some of the young guys step up if Chris Jones misses significant time on the interior and outside? He plays both. Does George Karlaftis raise his level of play? I think he does. I think he has a breakout year and is about an 8.5 to 9 sack guy. I think that at least one of their interior players raises his level, not to the Chris Jones level, but plays well. But they're going to miss Chris Jones. You can't not miss Chris Jones. 2, who emerges amongst the receivers? My money is on Sky Moore becoming the number 1, Rashee Rice becoming the number 3, and the battle is for like the number 2, right? Could it be Kadarius Toney if he can stay healthy? He's a guy with a history of hamstring issues, and if you ever pulled a hamstring, especially if you pulled it severely, you know that you have to be careful in the way you come back from that because you can easily re-injure it. But I think that's the fight, right? Is for who's going to be the number 2. I think the number 3 is kind of established, the number 1 is kind of established, and the fight is for number 2 among the receivers. The true number 1 is obviously Travis Kelce, future first ballot Hall of Fame tight end. And then offensive line depth. If they get injuries on the offensive line, we've all seen how disastrous that can be in the past for them.
Definitely.
I think they have improved that offensive line depth over what it used to be, but it'll be tested because once again, people get hurt during the season. Those are my only real questions about this team. They have a really good secondary. The linebackers are good. If Chris Jones comes back, that's one of the probably top 8 or so defensive fronts. They have first ballot Hall of Fame tight end with a nice backup in Noah Gray. If for some reason Kelce gets hurt, Gray is very good. And the only other thing I worry about is obviously an injury to their quarterback. Shane Buechele moved on, so now they have a new backup. But assuming that Patrick Lavon Mahomes II stays healthy, they will continue to contend. And if they can bring Chris Jones back sooner rather than later, that's probably a 13-win team. If Jones takes longer to come back, it's more like an 11-12 win team. And that means it's a bit of a dogfight because I think the Chargers are going to be right there behind on their heels. I think the Broncos are better this year by 2 or 3 games, probably be right around 500. And the Raiders are the big question mark for me. They're a very strangely constructed franchise right now. They finally came to terms with their best player on offense, which is Josh Jacobs. We'll have to see if Mr. James Garoppolo can, first of all, stay healthy. And can he get the ball out on time? So much what goes on in their offense is based on the ball coming out. They have a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer in Devontae Adams, who is just a terrific receiver who can attack you at all 3 levels. He can run all the little drags and curls and slants at elite level. He can run digs. He can run the deep outs at elite level. He can run deep posts. He can run post corners and shake routes at an elite level. He has a 40.5-inch vertical leap. So he can, even though he's only a shade over 6 feet tall, he plays as if he's 6'3" or 4.
You even run you crazy.
Because he has a tremendous vertical. They lost Darren Waller. That hurts them, right? Because that other person that forced you to react to them in the passing game that you could put on the other side of the field is now gone. They need someone to emerge as that other receiving threat. That is a very wide open question for them at the moment, who that person will be. So they have a very good running game, schematically in terms of talent. Question marks beyond Devontae, and they have to try to find somebody who's going to give them at least close to what Darren Waller gave them, and I don't know if they have that. So as of this moment, I have them close behind the Broncos. Probably also maybe it's a game or two under 500. So let's say 7 wins.
I'd say
He froze.
that sounds reasonable. Now for my predictions, I'm a little bit more cut to the chase here. I have the same order. Chiefs, I think, are still the class of the AFC. If Chris Jones comes back, they're definitely like a 12, 13, 14 win team, no question. If Chris Jones takes a little while, they'll still win the division, but they'll be like an 11, 12 win as opposed to like a 13, 14 win team. Chargers, I think, will take a bit of a step back. I think if they miss the playoffs, Brandon Staley's out of there. I think they'll finish like 8-9, 9-8, around there. I think they'll just be around or slightly above 500. Broncos, I think, will improve on offense. I think Wilson will look a little bit better. I still don't think he'll look that great, but I still think he will improve a bit. I think that they're like a 7-win team. And for the Raiders, like Bill said, they're strangely constructed. You have Garoppolo there, who knows with his injury history. Darren Waller not being there hurts. I'd say the Raiders are like around the same as the Broncos, like a 6-7 win team, a little bit lower. But I still think, AFC West, it's always competitive football ever since the 60s with these 4 teams. Don't forget the time where you had the Seahawks there for a bit. What about you, Zennie?
All right, I've got Chiefs, Raiders, tie, Broncos, Chargers, and that just like that. Chiefs and Raiders tie, Broncos, and then Chargers last. And the reason is that I really believe Jimmy Garoppolo is going to emerge as the missing piece the Raiders offense needed for one reason. There's a lot of talk about player movement here and there, but there's not much consideration of the fact that you have to be able to work with your coach once you get there. And Jimmy knows the man that he started out working with, and that's Josh McDaniels. And he knows the system. He doesn't have to adjust to the system the way that Derek had to adjust to the system. And we saw what happened there.
Screen froze a little bit for Zennie.
Yeah, Zennie froze up a little bit. Hopefully he'll be back. But while he's frozen in carbonite, like Han Solo, here's what I will say about what he said. My issues with Garoppolo.
Oh, Zennie's back.
Oh, yeah, he's back.
You were frozen a little bit, Zennie.
Yeah. Oh, I did? Okay. I don't know what's going on here with my internet. Maybe it's maybe I need to be upstairs or something. I don't know. Maybe it's this room.
Maybe.
But that normally doesn't happen. I think what I'm going to do is move to the other side of the room. That might be it. But before I do, let me just say this. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I said it. Oh, Chiefs and Raiders, to me, I believe the key here is that Jimmy's going to be a better quarterback than Derek was, and that the Raiders defense is going to be better in terms of having the right players to execute the scheme. I think the coach was going to simplify that. I think he was trying to do too much. And so I believe they're going to split. I think it's going to be really exciting. The Raiders are going to be determined to play in the building come Super Bowl time. We'll see how that works out. But there I am. There it is. Now, Bill, I think who's next?
No, you didn't. We already gave our stuff for the AFC West, but what about the Chargers and Broncos? What about those 2 teams?
The Chargers. I'm not, at first I was sold on Brandon Staley, but
I'm not.
And the reason I'm not is his offense, because I'm an offense guy for the most part, but his offense seems to be a collection of nifty trick or gotcha plays as opposed to a system. And so if you're calling plays in this kind of pointless fashion, like, well, okay, here's this situation, this therefore there's this defense, and I expect this play because I saw it work someplace else, as opposed to in our system, we run clear outs, and therefore we're going to make space for our receiver to get open versus this defense, which the Chargers don't do as much as I'd like. They do it, but it depends on the play. They seem to be, to me, to be a collection of plays looking for a system and a pointless approach. And you have to be absolutely right 100% of the time for that to work perfectly. But your system can overcome that if you have a system of thinking that translates from one play to the next offensively. They don't have that. They don't have that. And so that I kept trying to find out what the weakness was, and that's it, because better and more consistent. And I believe which is the other problem. They would be on the field longer, therefore our defense would be on the field less, and they'd be more effective. There you go, Vinny. I hope that answers your question.
I appreciate that, Zenny. So, before we go to the NFC, what are your?
You asked me the Broncos?
No,
I think I'll say this real quick. Sean Payton is on a mission to prove that he was better than
Drew Brees.
the Saints. Well, the Saints treated him,
Mhm.
and there's something going on back there that hasn't been talked about that I feel like was the undercurrent of why he left the way he did and why he came back so quickly. He's on a mission. There you go.
Before we go to the NFC, what are your playoff seeds? So the division winners, how's your ranking, and who are your 3 wild cards in order? Like the 1 seed, 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed. You know that deal.
Bill?
Okay. Well, I think the Chiefs are 1 seed. I think that we didn't talk NFC yet. Oh yeah. Okay.
Well,
So
before we get to NFC, we're going to do AFC.
Okay, so I won't give my NFC 1 seeds yet because we didn't talk about NFC yet. I think that the Ravens will be a 1 seed.
Do you think both the Ravens and the Chiefs will be 1 seeds? That's impossible.
Well, not 1 seed.
No, I mean like playoff.
They'll be the next. Right, they'll be the next.
You mean the 2 seed?
Right, the 2 seed. Right, that's what I meant. They'll be the 2 seed. Then I would. Let me see. Then I would probably put the. Who would I put next? Let me think about that. Probably maybe the Jaguars next. Let me think. Yeah, I guess the Jaguars would be next.
And then the Bills.
And then the Bills.
Then who are your 3 wild cards?
And the wild cards would be I would have the Chargers, I would have the Steelers, and I would have
You said Dolphins, right?
And the Dolphins, yes. There you go.
For my playoff seeds, I have the Chiefs as the 1. I have the Bills as the 2. The Jaguars as the 3. The Bengals as the 4. And for my wild card teams, I have the Jets as the 5. The Steelers as the 6. And the Ravens as the 7. And Zenny, what about you?
Okay, I had standings. I have
Like the
Steelers. I'm sorry, for playoff seedings. Are the oh, wait a minute.
So like your top, your division winners in order.
Right. I got you. Mm-hmm. And I forgot there were 3 wild cards or 3. Let's see here.
The 1 seed has the bye in the first.
Okay, here we go. All right. Steelers, Jags, Raiders, and Bills for my 1s. All right.
In that order?
Yeah, in that order. Steelers, Jags, Raiders, Bills.
Okay. What about the wild cards?
Chiefs, Browns, and Jets.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Now for the that sounds good. Now for the NFC.
Yep, NFC. Yep, here we go.
National Football Conference.
The National Football Conference, NFC East. You know what? I want to have enough money that we can have like a ballroom and we can have our own convention. Wouldn't that be cool?
That'd be pretty cool. We got to meet each other in person first for that.
Yeah. Anyway, just keep that under your hat. I'm still thinking big, even though things are microscopic. Anyway,
I got a hat. Put it underneath it.
I gotta get everybody a hat. Zennie62Media hat. All right.
I'd be down for that.
NFC East. I'm going to say Cowboys over the Eagles, followed by the Commanders and then the Giants. So Cowboys over the Eagles, Commanders, and Giants.
Okay.
I'm making it that simple. No. I'm not going to go into any explanations. I want to talk about it later, but there you go. I'll just say I think the Cowboys defense is going to be outstanding this year. Outstanding. Schematically.
Well, you, Bill?
I still have the Eagles atop the East. I think that the Cowboys will be improved. I think that they will just come up a little bit short against the Eagles, who still have the ability to make big plays, even against really good defensive teams, partially because of the bind they put you in. Because, I mean, people maybe don't like the fact that he's such an effective runner, but it forces you. It simplifies your defense. It forces simplicity on your defense. There's certain things you just can't do. There's certain things because you first of all, that's turning and running, right, with receivers, right? You have to play zone so much because you have to see him, because once he breaks the pocket, he's such an effective runner. I see him going for about 800 yards rushing.
Mama, there goes that man.
I see him going for about 800 yards rushing and about 3,600 yards passing for about 4,400, just under 4,400, like 4,379 total yards and about 43 total touchdowns between rushing and receiving.
Excuse me, can I amend?
I guess.
All right. I'm going to flip that around. I'm going to take Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders, Giants.
That's fine.
All right. So now I think, are in agreement. That's also what I see coming. I think the Giants sort of return to the mean a little bit. I think they'll have some problems on both sides of the ball. But Brian Daboll, to his credit, will make them still, at least on offense, relevant. I think their defense will get exposed a little bit. I think that the Eagles have come back to the pack a little bit, but they're still about a game better than the Cowboys. I think that the Commanders will be an improved team by a couple of games. I think they'll end up being about a 9-win team. And I think the Giants will be right there, but end up just on the wrong side of 508 wins. So I think that it's about 10 wins, 11 wins, 11 wins from the Eagles, 10 wins, Cowboys, 9-8. So it's a true stack, 11, 10, 9, 8.
All right. Bill.
Me.
That means Vin. That means Mr. Vinny Lospinoso, sir. What
Yes.
does the mayor of West Islip say?
I would say that the Eagles are winning the division. They're finally breaking a 20-year-long drought of a back-to-back NFC East winner.
Yep.
It was eventually going to happen, and the Eagles, I think, have by far the best roster, top to bottom, in the entire National Football Conference. Forget just the division, the entire NFC. They are loaded, especially on defense. Man, they have the entire Georgia Bulldogs back.
Yeah.
I said the Eagles, I think, are they're
words out of my mouth.
They're legit. As for the Cowboys, they're going to be a really quality second place team. Granted, second place, nothing too shabby, but they're still going to be competitive. As for the other two teams, I've really been debating back and forth whether or not I should go with the Giants or the Commanders. But usually, because those seedings never usually the same, I'm going to say the Commanders are just win over the Giants by a tiebreaker. But I see the Giants returning a little bit more regression to the mean, and the Commanders, I think, will be around the same, a little bit less. But still, I think the Eagles and the Cowboys, the clear difference between the top two teams. Even though the Giants were a playoff team last year, I think there's a clear difference between the top two teams and the bottom two teams in the NFC East. Okay, next division.
All right. So we are now in NFC North. All right.
The black and
So
blue division.
yeah, gonna blank. All right. And all right. Real quick. Packers, Bears, Lions, Vikings. Packers,
Bears.
Bears, Vikings, Lions.
See the
Packers,
Lions.
Bears, Lions, Vikings. Again, Packers,
Bears.
Bears, Lions, Vikings.
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Packers,
or
Bears, Lions.
I
Wait,
know.
did I say that? Packers, Bears, Lions.
Okay, we got that. Bill, what about you? What's
I
your
do. First of all, I believe that Bill.
He's coughed. He just
How's the
coughed.
Clemson game, Bill?
Oh,
well, Duke is apparently about to put him away.
there's been more adjustments for the referee's pants than there's been for Dabo Sweeney this half.
What?
Yeah, I'm dead serious. I'm not even joking. One of the referees did that, which I thought was kind of funny.
Yep.
Bill, what do you think about the NFC North?
Well, I think the Lions have a really good roster.
Sneeze.
I think that Jared Goff is wildly underrated for reasons I'm not exactly sure why people. I mean, all he did in the last 8 games was put up 14 touchdowns and I think 3 interceptions in the last 8 games of last year. He's extremely efficient. He knows what he can and cannot do. He understands the rules of that offense at a very high level. And they have really good pieces around him. Amon-Ra St. Brown is, I won't say a poor man's Devontae Adams, because that kind of maybe demeans him a little bit. Maybe more like a blue-collar, working-class man's Devontae Adams. He can work all 3 levels of the defense at a very high level. He can get deep on you. He can work the middle. He can work short. He's good after the catch. He's a good blocker. He's so complete. They did a pretty good job of replacing T.J. Hawkinson. I was a little puzzled about them letting him go, but they've done a good job of plugging that hole. Their running back by committee situation is still sort of perking along, even though they've made some changes. I think it's roughly a wash talent-wise. I think the defense improves. They were a terrible defense a couple of years ago. I think they're going to be significantly improved on that side of the ball. So I think they emerge. I still think it's close, though. I think the Packers are breathing right down their necks. People are sort of sleeping on young Mr. Jordan Love. They still have a very good defense also. They have one of the best defensive secondaries in all of football. My issues are pass rush. If Rashawn Gary continues to develop, though, that means that they'll now have that mismatched pass rusher that he certainly had the talent to become, but he was very raw when he came out of Michigan. Now he's put together a better package of moves, and he times his moves up way better than he did early in his career. And they still have some talent on that offense. They still have maybe the number 1 running back committee in terms of just the pure talent of both guys. I love those 2 running backs, and Aaron Jones is a complete back, and then you have basically a larger version of him in the person of A.J. Dillon, Quadzilla, as they call him. So they have a lot of talent, and I think Jordan Love has been coached very well. I think he's learned that offense at a high level in the times he's watched Aaron Charles Rodgers. Then we have the Bears and Vikings, and the Bears are improved on both sides of the ball as well. They still need more playmakers on offense. They still need to improve that offensive line. They're going to do well against teams that can't get pressure. Against teams that can get pressure, they're going to struggle. And then the Vikings, I think, somebody talked about a team's window closing. The window slams shut for the Vikings.
I was talking about the window closing for the Bengals.
For the Bengals, right. Well, if it's closing for the Bengals, it's closing much harder and faster for the Vikings.
It's slammed for the Vikings, as you said.
Yes, it's right. It's right. Slammed and maybe nailed.
Yeah,
They
nailed
still
down.
have- They still have Justin Jefferson, who is maybe the best all-around receiver in football right now.
He is.
And he's still going to produce, but their running game is taking a step back. I think their offensive line is taking a slight step back, and their defensive line is taking a step back. Their secondary has gotten older, but not better. I think they're going to give up a lot of points this year.
Okay,
Mhm.
So-
this is what I want to argue with you before we get to Vinny. And here, okay, I cannot stand this friggin' New York created Detroit Lions bandwagon. I say New York created because of all the events. They're getting the draft next year. That commercials on them. It's they're all this stuff. And I'm tired of hearing about the Detroit Lions when I am of the opinion that their coach does not pay the appropriate attention to detail. And while I love the members of his offensive and defensive coaching staff, I don't believe that they have the engineering think to take advantage of the talent that they possess. And so they were supposed to be the achievers last year. They didn't do it. And now people are picking them to be even more successful based on what? I'm not buying the hype. On the other hand, the Packers and Jordan Love, I think Jordan Love is going to show everybody, as he did before, that he is every measure the heir apparent to Aaron Rodgers under a more improved defense. So I said I was going to argue, Bill. So yeah, you can have back at me now.
I everything you're saying is correct, but they just have a little more depth of
He's
talent.
saying hold my.
Everything you said is correct, but there's a little more depth of talent, particularly in a couple of places. So I mentioned that Rashawn Gary is possibly developing into that mismatch pass rusher. Aiden Hutchinson already is that. And they've now added some additional pieces to that defense. I think that they're going to be, like I said, a much improved defense. I think those two teams will split this year. I think the Packers and Lions each have a win over each other. But I think that the Lions will have more success when they are involved in lower scoring games than the Packers will have. I think that the Packers will be a little vulnerable to attack in certain areas. They have one true shutdown corner in Jair Alexander, who's one of the top 4 or 5 corners in football. They have a bit of a drop off if you look to the other side of the field. And I feel like the Lions have a little more balance. They moved on from Jeff Okudah, which to me is addition by subtraction. And while Jeff Okudah was a more than capable zone corner, whenever he was required to turn and run with people, he struggled to do it. Not because he's a bad athlete, but because he's just not a guy who seemed to have great body control. He lost a little, what we call half a step in transition.
Would you
When
call
he
him a
had
bust?
to go from, I just think he was not super agile. I mean, I don't think it's that simple.
No, I'm saying that
Some
because
guys-
he was the 3rd overall pick in 2019, 2020.
Yeah, well, I mean, the term bust I usually say for guys who are out of the league in 3 or 4 years. He was overdrafted, and I don't know why people didn't see his weaknesses in his game because they were apparent on tape when he was at Ohio State. He was really good coming towards the play. He's not as good turning and going with the play. So, and that was apparent on tape. Like, if you put him in a scheme where he just basically comes downhill all the time, he'll look more like a guy you would take that early. But if he ever has to turn and burn, as we used to say, he struggles. He's always struggled with that. He's not great at making that transition. He's not a click and close type guy. He never has been.
Now, as for my choices,
Vinny?
I have the Detroit Lions barely edging out the Green Bay Packers here for the first in the NFC North. Now, the main reason why is because, as Bill said and many others said, I like the Lions this year. I like Jared Goff. I like I think their defense has gotten better. I think this is the natural progression for the Lions, and I think they're going to win their first division title in like 30 years, back when it was called the NFC Central. So this would be a first for me because I wasn't alive the last time the Lions won their division. Going next, I have the Green Bay Packers. I think the Packers will be really, really good. I think Jordan Love will put him in a position similar that Aaron Rodgers had. I think their defense is still legit. I think Matt LaFleur is still one of the best coaches in the NFL. I have them second. And as for third place and fourth place, I've been thinking about it a lot. I have the Chicago Bears slightly above the Minnesota Vikings here. And the reason why is because I think Justin Fields is going to improve. I think the entire defense of the Bears has also improved a bit. And I think they're going to be play some spoiler in some instances. As for the Vikings, their record was a lot better than they appeared to be because they were 13-4, but 8 of those wins came from behind comeback victories. They also had a negative point differential, and they got embarrassed against the Giants in the wild card round. A team like that has so many flaws yet a high record is bound to have a big regression. I was really skeptical about putting them in last place, but because their defense is gotten even worse and their line has gotten worse, I think they're going to be a last place team in that division. Still a competitive team, but like a 6-7 win team in that division. And the Bears around the same, just the Bears a slightly higher based on like a tiebreaker. So yeah, I have Lions, Packers, Bears, Vikings in that order.
Lions, Packers, Bears, Vikings. All right. Moving along, we are now going down to the NFC's my favorite division to talk about other than the AFC West, the NFC South. And Vinny, I believe we start with you.
Yes. Now the NFC South, I think, is the most interesting division this upcoming year. Not so much in terms of the number of playoff teams, but more so the fact that, it's going to be much more of a fight to see who's going to win the crown. Because, you look around the NFC, the Lions, a lot of people say, the Eagles, a lot of people say, and, you got even the AFC, you have the Chiefs, you have more EMS, but the NFC South, 3 out of the 4 teams, you can make a realistic case could win that division because, last year the Buccaneers won the division with an 8-9 record. I mean, it's not exactly groundbreaking. When they made the playoffs, they got destroyed against the Cowboys. So, like, the other 3 teams finished 7-10. Like, this division is very, very close, and their schedules are rather easy too. So, in terms of how I would rank them, I have the New Orleans Saints as, in my opinion, the best team in that division. I think they improved at quarterback with Derek Carr over Andy Dalton. You still have Jameis Winston as the backup. You still have Chris Olave in his second year. Hopefully, Michael Thomas is healthy. Their line I also really like. Their defense, I've always been a fan of the Saints defense. I think the Saints, the roster is the best one in terms of the South. Coming next, I've been deciding whether or not the Falcons or the Panthers. I'm going to go with the Falcons just by a tiny bit, mostly because their division's a bit easier. And I think Bijan Robinson is going to have an offensive rookie of the year type of a season for them. Very, very close. Like a tiebreaker would be the Carolina Panthers. There are some thoughts I've had of the Panthers to be a potential wild card threat. Like the Panthers, I really like what they have. I like Frank Reich. I like the addition of Adam Thielen. Of course, I love Bryce Young. I thought their defense was really good last year. I would not be shocked if the Panthers surprise some people and end up winning this division. That's how sneaky I think the Panthers are. And coming in last, I think this is obvious. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Right now, they have placeholders at quarterback. It almost seems like Todd Bowles is a lame duck at head coach. This team is in a rebuilding phase, and this is going to be Mike Evans' last season with the Buccaneers, and there could be a real chance he gets traded mid-season. So, all in all, I have Saints, Falcons, Panthers, Buccaneers in that order. Zenny?
So, Bill, you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm going to agree with everybody
me?
else
Okay.
so far about, or maybe not.
I said Bill.
Okay. So I'm going to agree with what's been said so far about the Saints. I think the Saints are the best team on both sides of the ball. On both sides of the ball in the conference. In the division. Not in the conference, in the division. I think that Mike Thomas, when he comes back with a certain amount of vengeance. I think Alvin Kamara, while he may be starting to edge towards the back 9 of his career, comes back and plays reasonably well. But this is the coming out party for Chris Olave. I think Chris Olave shows people he's a top 6 receiver in the NFL this year. I think he goes for over 1,300 yards receiving and at least 9 touchdowns. I think Derek Carr proves a lot of his doubters wrong. I think he ends up passing for about 31 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. I'm going to say 721 yards passing and 2 rushing touchdowns just for flavor. He's
tasty.
Yeah, he moves well. He still moves well. I think that it'll come down to depth on the offensive defensive lines that will determine how far they can go if they get into the playoffs. Well, when they get in the playoffs, because they win the division, they have to be in the playoffs. But how long they stay once they get there. They're the only playoff team in the division. I actually have the Falcons, sort of one of my surprise teams. I think that they are maybe just a game under 500, which puts them second in this particular division.
Same here.
And I then have the Panthers right behind them. I think the Panthers, once again, they even have the same record, but I think the Falcons may get the head-to-head. And then, as everyone has said, the Buccaneers are going to be one of the first 3 or 4 teams drafting next year. So they may be drafting their quarterback of the future next year. Maybe Drake May, maybe Caleb Williams if Drake May overtakes Caleb Williams. But they have a chance to maybe draft their actual long-term solution at quarterback.
What about you, Zenny?
Yeah, I thought a lot about this, obviously, and I'll just say that I think the real wild card here is how well the Bucs do. I'm not sold on the Saints as being the heir apparent because they bring in a brand new quarterback who has a kind of sickness given the way his former team treated him, the Raiders. And the first 6 games for the Saints are going to look pretty much like people expected. 5-1, perhaps. If they're not, that would be a story in itself, but it may very well be for the reasons I'm about to explain to you. Once the book is cemented on what they do and the defenses adjust, then the mistakes that Derek Carr has made with the Raiders will rear their heads yet again, specifically untimely passes leading to interceptions that lose the game for the organization. And Derek has got to get it in him to stay within his lane and think about the play and the technique and not winning. It reminds what Derek is going through reminds me a lot of a criticism that was issued against the Broncos by Jim Turner when he was representing the Broncos punter and they lost to the Cowboys in Super Bowl 12. And then that famous video featuring John Vicinda, he said regarding the Cowboys who beat them 27-10, we were out there thinking about winning, and they were out there thinking about ball. And the person doing all the thinking was Tom Landry. And the problem, I believe, is just that. I think Derek Carr has a chip on his shoulder, and he's when he makes a mistake, that error is going to impact his psyche that much more because he hasn't had enough time. Plus, we don't know how this triumvirate of Dennis Allen, who I'm not sold on as a head coach, Pete Carmichael, who's a so-so offensive coordinator, could be better, and Derek Carr will relate to each other in the heat of battle. In other words, when things start not going right, okay? Derek is used to the cadence of John Gruden. He's used to someone yelling at him, not about him, not treating him inappropriately, but basically getting on him and saying, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. I expect this. And he knows how to push Derek in that way. Josh McDaniels was different. Josh is the kind of person who call you an idiot.
or far worse.
And I believe that that's what I'm talking about, Bill. And so
I'm saying, yes, that
he did that a
or
couple of times last year. Yeah. And so I think that's really it. Best they could do was to have him in as a consultant. They don't have him on the sidelines. And John got the best out of Derek. He was able to settle Derek down. But this staff, it's a wild card. It really is a wild card. Now, on the other hand, a lot of people are against the Bucks, but I remind everybody that the Bucks have one thing going for them: their defense, save the loss of a player here or there, still their strength. Yeah, a lot of people, including myself, are not sold on Baker Mayfield, but they have a new offensive coordinator, a new approach. Then guess what? Nobody has a book on. Okay, and that's going to good stead. Now, the Falcons, I'm sorry. I am not a fan of Dave Rangoon, the offensive coordinator. I have watched the offenses perform poorly during the preseason in very basic ways. And I'm not happy with how they carry out their fundamental blocking schemes. They still look like they are 5 different players looking for a team. That's really how they play in terms of executing their scheme. That's how they're coached. It's not a criticism of them as individuals, but they really haven't gotten down how to cause their offensive line to work as a unit. They're too in love with inside and outside zone blocking, but even with that, they don't coach it so that their players are timed out the same way. So they've got some basic problems, and their time passing game just isn't there as much as I want it to be. Dave Rangoon was a passing game coordinator type, but he's not a precision offensive designer like I'd like to see. His best year was last year with Marcus Mariota until everybody got the book on him. And then everybody got the book on him, and everything went south. And then Mariota showed us, what happens when things go south with him. He leaves the team. I am not convinced, as much as I want not to be. I want to cheer for them because I like Mr. Blank and I like Arthur Smith. But professionally, I'm just not convinced this is the right group to get it done. I think Mr. Blank will be making some changes toward the end of the year. Bill?
I guess you mean Vinny, maybe?
Vinny?
I already made my.
Yeah.
We all made our picks for the NFC South.
We did.
Yeah, we did. That's right. Okay, so I was last then.
Yes.
Oh, okay. But Bill, I still want to hear your take on what I just said.
Well, I mean, you and I have some similar things maybe to say about Dave Ragone, but Dave Ragone is also very young.
Wait, Bill, do you disagree with me too? I mean, Vinny, do you disagree?
I don't disagree with you. I'm not a fan of his offense either. I think the Falcons. That's the big reason why I've been debating like the Falcons or the Panthers. Like the Falcons, I think could be where they are, but I think the Panthers are a team that's more likely to impress people than the Falcons, even though I have the Falcons at second.
Yeah, I don't know how to read the Panthers, man. That's why I didn't mention. I know they have coming in, but
yeah, I know how to read them. They've got some
scheme. I'm just not.
Problems.
I mean, look. Here's the point. I'll say this. So tell me what you see. Tell me what you see, Bill. Not on TV, but I mean, like what you see.
Their offensive line is maybe not quite the right offensive line in terms of how it's composed for the quarterback they have. So if you look at the way that Sean Payton and Kugler and
what do you mean you say that?
Well, okay. So I was about to say. So look at the way that the Saints built their offensive line when they built around Drew Brees. They built everything around making sure that center guard center trio were great at getting that initial pop to stop the rush, so that a shorter quarterback had a passing lane, and they would often literally punch you in the stomach. if you look closely. Because why? Drop makes your hands come down, right? So now your quarterback who's 6 feet tall, barely, and in the case of, obviously in the case of Bryce, 5'10" and change, has a place to go with the ball. They don't have that. They don't have both the technique or even the talent, I believe, in that center guard center trio that will be good for make it easy on him. So he's going to have to move around a lot. He's a good mover. He moves well. He throws the ball on the run well, but that's also makes you more prone to what? Interceptions, right? Because your feet aren't arranged the way you ideally would be arranged if you're throwing from the pocket. And two, while scramble plays can lead to big plays, they can also lead to big hits, both for you, but also for your receivers, because now they are adjusting on the fly. And when you're sequencing your passing game, you're sequencing in such a way that you're trying to avoid what we call hospital balls. But once a scramble play breaks out, now you are concentrating on trying to make yourself available to the quarterback, and you aren't looking out for where that hammer might be coming from a safety. So they're going to have some breakdown.
You know what Bryce Young reminds me?
What does he remind you of?
Bill, Vinny. Do you know who Bryce Young reminds of?
What does he remind you of?
Michael Jackson. Think about it. Michael Jackson.
Oh boy.
Does he moonwalk?
Come on, don't say you didn't think about it.
I certainly didn't.
Interesting comparison.
Interesting. That's a way to put it. Yeah, interesting. I was thinking maybe Fran Tarkington, but okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say more like a Tarkenton kind of a guy. Honestly, I wasn't thinking like people outside, quarterbacking.
But I think they're going to have some issues with attacking certain parts of the field. And, Adam Thielen is a decent possession receiver. They have some question marks on the outside. And I think they need to upgrade the tight end position, quite frankly. So I think their running game will be solid. And Bryce Young himself will add to it a little bit. They don't run him a lot, but they'll run him in certain places. He's a good athlete.
I like Miles Sanders in that. I love Miles Sanders in that back.
Miles Sanders is a good player. I'm a big Chuba Hubbard guy too. I think that's gonna be a nice 1-2 punch.
The Panthers could really surprise some people like that. I've even just saw something that says like the Panthers are against like a relatively weak opponent. Like even though I have them at 8-9, like don't be shocked if the Panthers get a wild card spot. I don't have it just for safety purposes, but don't be shocked. In my opinion, don't be shocked.
Well, I think that at least one other team other than the Saints will emerge.
They do have the right guy to get to do that. No, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think the roster isn't there yet, quite frankly. I think they're
so now we have to pick our playoffs.
No, we didn't do our NFC. The NFC West.
Right.
We didn't do that.
Yeah. So
right, let me get.
Let's get back the screen for the NFC West.
Right, you do the West. Sorry about the computer. Yeah, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. Don't worry, I haven't given it. Ta-da! Okay, so Mr. Carroll, right? Is that?
Yep. I think that the Seahawks and 49ers end up. Yeah, can you hear me?
I'll kick us off.
I can hear you.
I think the Seahawks and 49ers have the exact same record.
I can hear you loud and clear. Yeah.
I think they both go 11-6. And I think it'll come down to head-to-head. I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm going to give the slightest of edges to the Seahawks. I think they end up with exactly the same record, though. So I think it'll go to tiebreakers. So I think the Seahawks prove that they are not a mirage, not a bubble, not a fluke, or whatever term you want to use. I think they drafted well. I think that the addition of Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think that the upgrades they've made to their offensive and defensive fronts are going to help them to hold up better against some of the teams that were able to exploit those weaknesses last year. I think Geno Smith proves that he is a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. And like I said, it wasn't smoke and mirrors. I think that they will also run the ball well. I just feel like this is a team that is going to be well balanced on offense and defense. My only real issue is, once again, pass rush. They had to scheme up pressure last year. If any of the players that they drafted or any of the players they've added emerge as at least a better than average pass rusher, this will be a demonstrably better defense. And I think that, I think they'll even win a playoff game. I think they're going to make the playoffs and win a playoff game. I think the 49ers are right there. Like I said, I literally think they'll tie in terms of record during the regular season.
Hey, Bill, are you assuming that the 49ers get Bosa back?
I mean, I'm not assuming anything. But even if they don't get Bosa, I think they have enough that they can still be a 10 or 11 win team. Obviously, with Bosa, they have a better team than without. And just like we talked about with the Carolina Panthers, with maybe not losing Brian Burns, if Brian Burns maybe sitting out a significant number of games, they're going to lose a game probably that they would have won because they had, that pass rusher that can close out a game late by getting a strip sack or something like that. If Brian Burns misses a significant amount of time, like with Chris Jones, that's probably one more loss for the Panthers. Same thing with the 49ers. They might go from 11 to 10 wins, but they're a good enough team that they'll still be a double-digit team. Now it gets interesting. I think the Cardinals are maybe the worst team in football, so let's knock that out of the way. And the Rams, I think, are neither fish nor fowl. They're sort of where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were last year, where they have some aging stars left on their roster, young players who aren't quite ready to establish themselves as top flight players yet, but you can see flashes of their talent. I think that they are a year away from being a year away, but I'll pencil them in for probably 6 wins, about 6-11. I think that the Cardinals are 3-14, and like I said, 11-6 and 11-6 for the top 2 teams.
Mm-hmm. And as for me, I have the Seahawks also in first place. I think the Seahawks are legit. I really like how their draft is. I really like Geno Smith. I think he is no fluke. I think he's going to establish himself as one of the better quarterbacks in the NFC. I have him as an easy pick for the division. Niners, I'm a little bit more skeptical of because, Bosa's injury. I'm still not entirely sure if Brock Purdy is going to be the answer for them. If not, you have Sam Darnold there, and you don't have Trey Lance anymore. So there's still questions at quarterback. And, there's still some questions. I think maybe they could try to trade for Kirk Cousins. Like, there's some rumors about that. I'm not sure if that's the case. But, Niners, I think, are a second place team. I still think as a roster, they're a playoff caliber team. Rams, I think they're not going to be good. I think, Kupp is still injured. You don't have many players left on that team. I think Stafford's getting old. I think they feel like a 6-win team, 6, maybe 7 wins, but like 6 wins, I think could be what we get. And for the Cardinals, they're going to be the worst team in the NFL this year. Murray's not going to – I don't think they're going to play Murray at all this year. I don't even know who's going to be their starting quarterback. Josh Dobbs? Like, it's going to – who they just traded for. I think the Cardinals, outside of Budda Baker, who do you really have on that team now? You traded away Isaiah Simmons. You don't have Andy Lee anymore. You have Matt Prater, who's getting up there in age. You don't have a good offensive line. Like, you still have Rodney. Who's that guy? Who's the center for the Raiders those years?
Hudson.
Rodney Hudson. Is he still with the Cardinals? Or no, he's not. Oh no, he just retired.
Retired. Yeah.
I don't.
Rodney Hudson just retired. So they don't even have him anymore. So the Cardinals are going to be. And for the Cardinals fans, that's great. That's great for them because even if they're not sold on Caleb Williams, they can trade back and get a whole bunch of picks. Hey, in many ways, you could say they're the biggest winners. You could say that is their Super Bowl. But don't worry, like the Texans, they don't have any nationally televised games, so that means less people get to see them do terribly. And for you, Zennie?
All right. Seahawks, Cardinals, 49ers, Rams. Here's why. The Seahawks really gelled as a team. Their quarterback is Lock loves to root him on and cheer for him. And they really haven't had a situation like that in a bit, knowing who their undisputed leader is without any controversy. The Seahawks defense has gotten a group of young players I think are going to return them to their glory days from a team speed standpoint, if not a scheme standpoint, because of the changes in the league. And Pete Carroll just seems like he's found a new fountain of youth. He's excited this year in a way that I haven't seen him before. And when he gets excited like that, and he gets in, I've had the opportunity to interview him, and he looks at you directly, and he's ready to go. You want to go through a wall for the man. And as we saw last weekend, there is something to be said for that. Now, let me get to the 49ers. The issue that I have with the 49ers is that they don't have, in my opinion, the coaching staff that is going to, with Brock Purdy, and now there's a book on him, engineer enough different plays to overcome that. I am not convinced that they did it with Garoppolo getting them there, but I believe the window for the combination of what this talent is capable of doing is closing. Because name me a guy that they brought in either from trade or from the NFL draft where you say, okay, this is the guy this year that's going to make the difference for them. Someone that just blows your socks off, or you say, well, Jalen Carter, well, he went to the Eagles, right? I can go on and on and on. So I'm not sold on the 49ers. That you would say, well, how do I explain the Cardinals? And I will tell you. Because the Cardinals went from a coach that installed an offense that some would rightly describe as gimmicky, where the time passing game was seemingly non-existent, to installing a person who, as a head coach, is installing an offense that's more precise in its operation and therefore be effective and more consistent more often. Their defense will make the difference. Who are best. I am not. The Rams, I've given up on them. They have what they came in with was a great way of mixing in talent like Cooper Kupp and speedsters with power on defense, timely schemes, and an offense that was innovative in terms of how it used or didn't use space. The type form. Book on, and Sean hasn't seemed to be able to scheme his way into but that's going to continue this year. Yeah, I can't. That's the way I'm seeing it.
You think the Rams going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL? Zennie, do you see the Rams as like one of the worst teams in the NFL this year? Kind of freezing a little bit.
Yeah, I do. And it's coaching. See, a lot of saying that no one asked me why I picked the Bears. And the reason I did to finish it high is because Matt Eberflus made a fundamental change that I called for when he first started. I said, look, if you're going to have Justin Fields, put a ball control passing offensive scheme set around him. He did that. And we already in his preseason saw with DJ Moore's 63-yard touchdown the difference. And that plus a highly improved Bears defense and a sound running game. Thank God somebody's using trap. So sick of the 1979 John Robinson, I'm going to lay all over you running scheme of blocking, and all that crap. I'm tired of it. Here come the Bears, willing to pull their offensive tackles to run out ahead of their running backs or lead on a waggle. I mean, I love offense, and that combined defense going to make them formidable in a way they haven't been in quite some time. Fast and formidable. But
You think this
coaching
is gonna
matters.
be? You think this is gonna be?
I again, Matt Eberflus being willing to say again.
Do you think this is gonna be Stafford's last year
Sorry,
with the
Vinny,
Rams?
again.
I said, do you think this will be Stafford's last year with the Rams?
No, I don't think so. The question is, will this be McVay's last year? That's the big question. Okay. That's the big question. Now, I know you're probably thinking about that crack he made about his wife or his wife made about him. Remember Matt Stafford's wife said,
Yeah, about like
did you
apparently
hear that, Bill?
he doesn't remember the players on his team.
Well,
or something.
trouble connecting with them, right? It's the whole thing about the age gap and everything.
Yeah.
But that, first of all, I think people read more into it than there is. He's 37. A lot of the players on the team are much younger. That's not, to me, that's not breaking news that he's having trouble connecting with, a generation that grew up. I mean, think about this. He entered the draft the year he enters the draft was probably the same year that some of these players entered school, period, right?
Yeah.
So he's probably drafted the same year that several of his teammates entered first grade or kindergarten.
Yeah, no, not true, because a lot of the players around my age, and around that time, I was someone who was at the end of fourth grade when he was in the draft class, and I grew up watching. Let's say if you're a kid in Detroit and you grew up watching.
You're 23,
24.
Okay, so if someone's a couple years younger than you, that means that they're probably in first or second grade.
Yeah, around there.
Okay, so depending on what time of year they were born. So it's not surprising to me that he's having trouble connecting with some of them. I don't think that's, like I said, this feels like much ado about nothing. Now,
I agree.
I will say this much. You will look like an absolute genius, Zennie, if the Cardinals are not absolutely terrible, because their roster is bad. And they're going to have to do some wild, crazy things scheme-wise to make up for it. But I'll be thrilled if you're right, because then, we can blast this all over the place.
Yeah, that's where Bill. That's the difference. That's the difference.
I know what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. But
that's it.
I mean,
that
roster's bad. It's bad. It is. It's bad.
Hey, the way I see it, whether or not Zennie's right or Bill's right, what are we going to get out of that? Zilch, nothing.
Well, we'll get more out of it if Zennie's right, because that's the kind of thing that will draw more clicks. If you were the one person in America that thought they were going to be a playoff team.
No, I don't think he said a playoff team. He just said they'd be second in the division.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did. I didn't pick them. For example, I've got Seahawks, not necessarily in this order. I've got Seahawks, Saints, Packers, Eagles. So I think it's going to be more like Eagles, Packers, Saints, Seahawks, somewhere like that. Okay.
Okay.
And then I've got Cowboys, Bears, and 49ers for wild card.
Mine are the Eagles, Lions, Seahawks, Saints. And then I have the Niners, Cowboys, Packers as my wild cards. What about you, Bill?
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I had Seahawks. I had Cowboys, Eagles. The one seeds. Okay, for one seeds, Eagles. A one seed. No, they aren't. There are two.
The division winners 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the wild cards 5, 6, 7.
Right. So they're going to be a 2 seed actually. When I think about it. So the 1 seed would probably be. Let's see.
Philly.
Well, no, not Philly, because I don't think they're going to have high enough record to be the 1 seed amongst all the division winners. So I guess the division winner would probably have the best record might be the.
Well, the teams that win the division in your eyes are the Eagles, Lions, Saints, and Seahawks. So which of those would be the best?
I'm thinking. I'm trying to think. I guess it might be the Seahawks, because I think they have the easiest schedule probably of them. So I guess it would be Seahawks, Eagles, Lions, and
Saints.
Saints. Yeah.
Then what are your wild cards?
And my wild cards would be the 49ers, the Cowboys, and Packers.
Sounds good. Okay, that sounds
So
good.
look at the Super Bowl. You start.
I see a Eagles defeating the Chiefs in Super Bowl 58 as a revenge from last season. After defeating in the conference championships, I see the Chiefs beating the Jaguars, and I see the Eagles defeating the Seahawks. What about you, Bill?
Bill,
Bill?
what do you think about that? Yeah, I know. I heard you. Gun to my head, I'll say Chiefs Packers. I think the Packers get hot late and have a hot run through the playoffs. After being sort of a middling team at certain points of the season, I think it's stuff to put together late. And who wins it?
See the Packers going to the Super Bowl with Jordan Love in his first year?
I think
That's bold.
I think they get hot late. Yeah, I might change my mind later, but that's where it is now. And yeah, I have the Chiefs winning though. But yeah, I think they get hot late and make a run.
So rematch of Super Bowl
one.
Yes, a rematch of Super Bowl one. Yep.
Is that right, Bill? A rematch of Super Bowl 4?
Was it
a Super Bowl 1? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, it was one. Yeah, I was gonna say one. Yeah.
What you, Zennie?
Yeah, but Super Bowl 4 was
Vikings.
The Super Bowl was the Chiefs
Vikings,
and the Vikings,
right? And the Chiefs just
the Chiefs
pushed them around. They just pushed them around. That small defensive line of the Vikings just got dominated.
Right. Okay.
So what do you see
Bill,
happening
what do you
in the Super
say? I'm sorry. Yeah. Bill, you said the Pack. He said that. He said it's going to be the Chiefs and the Packers.
The Packers. And I have the Eagles over the Chiefs. He has the Chiefs over the Packers. I have the Eagles over the Chiefs. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I have the Bills losing to the Eagles in the Super Bowl in Las Vegas.
That's pretty good. They're actually facing against each other in this season. Same with the Chiefs and the Packers. Same with the Eagles and the Eagles and the Chiefs. So,
hey, Vinny, think about that, because if I'm not mistaken, I'll bet you there is a positive percentage attached to the teams playing each other interconference early on that meet in the Super Bowl the same year.
yes, one that really comes to mind for me, because I'm from New York. I actually went to the game that the Patriots went 16-0, and they did it against the Giants. I remember I was in that stadium for it. And of course, that happened 4 years later, where they faced each other in the regular season, and then they met each other in that Super Bowl.
I was there. In fact, Zennie62, this channel has the entire final drive of the Giants with Plaxico Burress scoring the touchdown.
Yes, I do remember seeing
third deck, film the whole thing.
Yes, and I was going to say there's other ones that come to mind too, that met each other in the regular season, and they met each other in the Super Bowl. I'm drawing a blank on a little bit of them. I know those two, of course. I of course also know about which other one was there? Really starting to think, because I know the ones that happened the year afterwards. Broncos, Seahawks. You also had a Panthers, Broncos, and of course Patriots, Falcons, and I think you had. Did you? No, I don't know. No, you didn't have that in there. I'm not really sure if I remember. I was having me stumped for there for a bit. 52 had those Patriots and those Fans. No, that was the year before.
All right, gentlemen.
You had Buccaneers Chiefs. You had Buccaneers Chiefs Super Bowl 55. They met each other in the regular season, and they met each other in the Super Bowl.
Let's knock this out real quick. Thursday night, Detroit visits Kansas City. What you got, Bill?
I think it's a very close game, but I still have Kansas City.
Vinny?
Give me KC and winning week 1.
I'll take KC in a blowout. Okay, Sunday, September 10th, we have the Panthers visiting the Falcons. I'd love to go to that game if I could. I'll take the Panthers in an upset. I will take the Panthers in upset. And I'll break this out too. God, I'd love to go to that game if I could.
Me too. Bill?
I'll take the Falcons in an upset.
Okay, I'm here to break up.
What's the line on the game?
I actually think the Panthers are slightly favored, but I'll double check.
Let me check right now. I got my
I'm going to check also.
My phone here. Because it's a home game for the Falcons.
Yep. Let's see. It's Falcons minus 3.5.
Oh, okay.
So the Falcons are favored.
Okay, Falcons are favored. Okay, well, I'll take them then in a non-upset.
Yeah. Giving 3.5. Yeah.
I have the Falcons winning, so rise up 1-0. Okay, 1-0 for the Falcons. Okay, tie broken. Falcons win that one, I guess. Next game.
Baltimore hosting the Texans.
Oh.
What say you, Vinny?
Baltimore. I think the Ravens are a playoff team, but I do think the Texans will be better this year. I really do like D'Amico Ryans, and I can't wait to see CJ Stroud in his first game. I'm very excited for that. Well, you, Bill?
I think the Ravens by double digits. I think that it's
right.
I think it's
Bill?
close early on, but eventually the difference between the experience and talent in a couple of parts of the team will emerge, and you'll get, maybe a tip ball interception that's returned for a touchdown. They'll pull away towards the end and win by somewhere between like 10 and 17 points.
Well, you, Zennie? Texans or Ravens?
In offense of Baltimore Ravens, the Texans offensive coordinator there, he's got more design jukes in his play than in fact, there's only one other person I've seen with more jukes design in their plays, and that's me. So I'm really high on to see how this works in actual practice. I was really studying them preseason, and I love the way the Texans is designed. Now, a lot of those plays are ran with Davis Mills, but I want to see them do it with CJ Stroud, and I believe they will.
Mm-hmm.
Then package, we're out of the I formation quarterback. Oh, he dropped short, and it's out of a run action as opposed to the running backs going out for the pass, but it's out of run action. And it implies that there's a run option, but it's not. It's a fooler. It's really cool. They've done it a few times this preseason. They did it the first game out. It was very effective when they brought Davis Mills in to run it. They didn't run it with CJ Stroud, though, okay? So I'm really high on the Texans, and so it wouldn't surprise me if, first of all, they finish close, and even they come away with an upset, okay? I'll just put that out there. Next, I think it's Bill.
You mean the Cincinnati-Cleveland game? Yeah.
Yeah.
While I think that game will be close and Cleveland is better this year than they are next year, I still think Cincinnati pulls it out.
Isn't Burrow going to be like injured for this game? Is he going to play for this game, or is he going to? Because
He's
if
playing.
Burrow,
Yeah,
he's playing.
Yeah.
Even then, I have the Browns winning this game.
I agree. I'll take the Browns. Next, we've got home game. Jacksonville visiting Indy in a huge game. Another huge game.
Mm.
All right. I'm going to take Jacksonville. I'm going to stick with this one because I'm still wanting to see what Indy does defensively, because if you're going to have a guy like Anthony Richardson, your defense has to be strong enough to carry them through. Although I'm excited, I wish I were designing the schemes for Richardson. I think if it were me, I'd pick Indy if I were running it. How about that, right? But it's not me, so I don't trust the guy that they have doing it just yet. So we'll see how he handles Anthony. It's going to be a lot of fun, and they didn't keep Jonathan Taylor. So there you go, Jacksonville. Next,
Oh, wait. For me, I have.
is that it's Bill, right?
Yeah, Bill, you go.
Oh, well, I mean, they still have Jonathan Taylor. He's just on the the unable to perform list because he hasn't reported, but he's going to end up having to report at some point. It'll probably be several games into the season. Jacksonville is the more prepared team to win at this point. I think the Colts will make it very challenging because they have some interesting wrinkles in their offense. They have some talent on defense. Shaquille Leonard, who was hurt much of last year, is back and 100%. I like a lot of the individual pieces that they have. And Richardson, just because of his physical ability, is going to make some plays, but it won't be enough. So, yeah, Jacksonville, probably by about, I'll say, 31-23.
31.
30, yeah, I think Jacksonville scores 31 points. Yeah, 31-23.
Wait, yeah, but how much did Indy score?
I already said 23.
23 points.
I didn't hear that part. Okay, all right.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Now,
So
for
now
me,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Benny. Excuse me.
okay, now I have weird how Jaguars Colts is a Fox game and Buccaneers Vikings is a CBS game. But regardless, even though that seems kind of weird, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars winning this game. I think the Colts are going to be the worst team in the AFC South. And even with Anthony Richardson, I still think the Jaguars are by far the better team, by far. So it'd be the Jaguars.
All right. Tampa Bay visiting Minnesota. I'll take it. I think Bucks are going to walk in and beat the Vikings.
You, Bill?
I think it is being a real close game. I think the fact that it's at Minnesota helps, but you're going to see all the flaws we talked about. I think Minnesota narrowly escapes due to probably something like a strip sack that they cash in for a late field goal. I think they end up winning by about 2 points. So I don't have to check see what the line is on the spread is on it. So they might not cover depending what the spread is.
I see the Vikings winning by like one score. Like I think the defense is going to be really bad, and you're going to see that throughout the game.
All right. Tennessee visiting the Saints. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first in this one. Man, this is going to be a really interesting game. I have the Saints winning this one at home.
Yeah.
I think the Saints, like I said, they're the best team in the NFC South, in my opinion. I think they'll beat this game, this interconference matchup.
So I'm going to take Tennessee for the upset.
Awesome.
Mainly because Mike Vrabel as coach just had they know they've had Derek Carr's number for a while, and they know his tendencies, even with a switch. So just something in that game feels like trap, and it feels like a trap game. So there we go. All right, Bill.
Saints in a nail biter. I think
Mr. Carroll.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a defensive play that puts them over the top. Watch out for a defensive score late in the game to salt the victory away for the Saints.
Now we come to the Niners visiting the Steelers. Oh my goodness. What do you think, Bill?
Huh. Yeah, it's a tough one.
Bill.
Since it's that, I already answered.
Niners,
But
Steelers.
since it's that, yeah, I'm answering. Since it's at Pittsburgh, I'm going to, well, I guess Acrisure or whatever stadium now, whatever they call it. But yeah, I think the Steelers pull out a very narrow victory. I think that we get a broken play, like a play that
Vinny?
outside the pocket. I think that Pickett sort of scrambles around and makes a late sort of desperation heave to Fryermuth, who scores a late touchdown to salt the victory away.
And then for me, I see also the Steelers in a nail biter. I see the Steelers winning this one at home in Acrisure.
I'm going to go with Vinny. I agree. All right, so we've got Arizona, Washington. You're welcome. Arizona and Washington. I will take. Boy, I'm gonna take the Commanders. I believe that the Commanders have an outstanding coordinator, and I think Eric is going to coach his tail off, and that could wind up being a blowout. Could. But if it doesn't, you will only be the Command defense isn't as good as I thought they would be, which would mean that the Cardinals' offense was every bit as well schemed as I said it was going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know what? I'm going to revise that. I'm going to pick this game as even.
So a tie.
But I have to pick a winner, don't I?
Unless you're picking a tie, you could predict a tie.
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way: it's less likely that'll happen than if I say the Commanders will win by 3 or something like that, right? So I'll just take that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was surprised if I wouldn't be upset came out of that. There's something about the just bugging me, man. It's just what I saw preseason. I really liked what I saw. I love the fact that they have a precision offense yet again. And I did not like the offense. I love the air raid. You guys know I love the air raid. But I didn't like I didn't like the way it was executed last year. I don't like Mr.
Cliff Kingsbury.
I don't like that head coach. Stop right there because I don't want to waste a lot of time trying to dissect, explain that all over again. I'm just coaching because to me, got a lot of jobs because he was, an do I really have to watch his lack of attention to detail again and again and again and again and again? I'm just was really tired of it, just tired. And then when I had the opportunity to talk and interview him, it's not like he doesn't give you a lot of substance. And maybe it's how I hit him or whatever, but I wanted to know if he was going to use or why he wasn't using the standard vertical set blocking in his scheme. He said no, he was using another one, but he didn't explain why. He didn't get into it. And the way he answered it, it left me with, okay, you think you've got this, rather than having a Rutland junk for what you're doing. In other words, okay, what is it, right? And yet, I was a fan of the air raid that he ran, but I believe that the air raid is best ran mixed with the Bill Walsh offense. You all know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
An attention to footsteps drop back instead of yards, precision, and then the formations, and then the spacing. And Kevin didn't do that, and it was bugging me. So anyway, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. So now for my prediction, I see the Commanders winning this at home.
Yeah.
Same
Bill?
with you, Bill.
Bill?
Yeah, well, as I said, I think Arizona may be the worst team in the whole league. So yes, especially at home, Washington wins by at least 10 points.
Cliff Kingsbury. I'm sorry, I kept saying I meant Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
said Cliff Kingsbury, but you shouldn't hear me.
Yeah. So now we're Green Bay at Chicago. Oh,
That's gonna be good.
yeah. Now we're talking, man. At Soldiers Field. Here we go. Here we go. The Bears. I'm picking the Bears. The Bears. Yes. Even though I picked the Green Bay to win, I'm picking the Bears to win. And because remember, I said it's going to be close, right?
Mhm.
I'm picking the Bears.
What about you, Bill?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I think it's an extremely close game. I'm going back and forth, but I'm going to go ahead and stick my neck out a little bit and say in a very close game, like 3 or fewer points. I think Green Bay still owns them, right? I still own you. I've always owned you. I don't know if he'll do the whole celebration if he does pull out his victory, but I think they get a narrow win.
I'm picking the Bears here in an upset.
Yeah. Yeah. The Bears.
Yep.
The Bears.
Got to do that old Chris Farley
The Bears.
chest thump.
Now we come to that's that. Yeah. Now, hey, have you seen Blazing? Oh, gosh, what is wrong with my head?
We just talked about Blazing
The
Saddles.
Blues Brothers.
Blues
You
Brothers.
seen that?
No, I have not.
No, the Blues Brothers. You've seen the what? He just came on last. Man. Oh. Oh my Lord.
Okay, next game.
He hasn't seen Bushi and Aykroyd at their finest.
He has not.
No, I'm still young. Keep that in mind.
Bill?
So the game we're on to is the Las Vegas Denver.
Mhm.
Yeah, Raiders. Yeah.
Raiders Broncos, yeah.
I'm going to say, well, partially because they're playing in Mile High, but mostly that's because Denver is going to be, I think, improved over last year. I think Denver gets that victory.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
I'd say give me Denver in a close one. Give me Denver.
I'll go with what Vinny said. I agree. Now we come to Miami, visiting the LA at the beautiful SoFi Stadium. And what say you, Vinny?
I have actually the Dolphins in this one. I have the Miami Dolphins in this game, winning against the Chargers, where it's going to be a sea of aqua and orange in Los Angeles. Come on. There's a joke there.
Bill?
Well, though I do very much believe in the Miami Dolphins, I think they get off 0-1. I think the Chargers, want to sort of show they're not the same old Chargers from last year. But more importantly, I think that they're able to establish their rookie. Quentin Johnston gives them that one thing they didn't have. They had a big-bodied receiver, Mike Williams, and they had the often injured but effective when he could get on the field, slot receiver and possession receiver in Keenan Allen. What Quentin Johnston gives them with his height, weight, and speed combination is somebody who can threaten them deep. which they hadn't had to account for before. I think that this young man, Quentin Johnston, only ends up with about 69 yards in receiving, but 2 touchdowns. And I think he's the difference in the game. So give me the Chargers.
What were you, Zenny?
All right, so now we come to visiting. I'm sorry, Miami blows out the Chargers. Miami blows out the Chargers in LA. Yeah. Speed kills.
Mm-hmm. Now, Super Bowl 50,
That
30.
That'll be the name of this contest. Speed kills.
Now, Super Bowl 39 and 52 rematch here. Eagles, Patriots.
Oh,
That's the next game.
Yeah.
The rematch of 2 Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm. Say it.
Oh, I have the Eagles winning this one on the road. Though I think it'll be close, but I think the Eagles defense is going to overpower.
What say you, Bill?
Yeah. If they played this game on the moon, if they played this game, in Latvia, it wouldn't matter to me. Give me the Eagles. I think
Alpha Centauri.
Yes, Alpha Centauri, exactly. Give me the Eagles. Zero gravity, double gravity, whatever it is. The Eagles have so much depth, and they can attack you so many different ways. I just feel like New England will be very game and put up a heck of a fight, but they'll just get overwhelmed.
What you, Zenny?
All right, so now we come to Eagles easily blowout. Now it's not a blowout. Then we'll have to quickly, dust off the Bill Belichick is tapes, right? So because that's the only way they'll come away with a victory, aside from the fact that they're at home, right? But still, it doesn't spell close game. It spells blowout. But I'm happy to be wrong, for no other reason than I'd like to think that intellect matters, even when, although you have to say that the Eagles coaches staff are really smart too. So, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Philly bills out Patriots next. LA visits Seattle. Rams lose to the Seahawks. Next.
Wait, I see a blowout.
Both of you.
I see a blowout here too. I think the Seahawks are by far the better team than the Rams. I think Stafford's going to show some clear signs of regression, and with Cooper Kupp, we don't even know he's going to play. So, yeah, I have the Seahawks winning this one pretty easily.
Yeah, I think Cooper Kupp misses at least 2 games, more likely 3 games. But even if you were playing, I still would have Seattle winning just to be closer. Without him, it's probably about a 10-point victory for Seattle.
And we have this Sunday night game, Dallas against the New York Giants. What do you say, Vinny?
It feels like this matchup always happens on week 1 or like around week 1.
Yeah, because it does.
Yeah, but this time it's in New York instead of Dallas. So it's a bit of a change of scenery, I guess.
Yeah.
Give me Dallas. I think they're the better team, better coach, better roster, better quarterback, just better team altogether than the Giants. So, yeah, I have the Cowboys winning this one. No question.
Mr. Carroll, what say you?
While I'll give the actual coaching edge to the Giants, the talent edge, the everything else edge, and somebody mentioned speed. Dallas has better team speed at every position except probably running back. But they're just the better team. So I'm going to go with Dallas, even going on the road.
Now we come to the contest that demonstrates the NFL really knows what it's doing in terms of scheduling. Buffalo visiting the New York Jets. All right. Bill, who you got?
This is another tough one. I think this is an extremely close game. I think, it's a coin flip game, but I'm going to, even though they're going on the run, I'm going to go with Buffalo. I think Buffalo comes out hot this year and then fades down the stretch. So I look for them to be like 7-1 at the halfway point and then end up sort of going 500 the rest of the way. But I think they get the win here.
I have. Give me the Jets in an upset. Give me the Jets to win in Aaron Rodgers' first game at home. We're in the 1980s New York Sack Exchange jerseys, which they will be wearing that day. I did check.
Ooh.
So that's good. And I think they're going to be giving out Klecko's Hall.
Yeah,
of Fame.
you know what? I'm gonna take that because I think the Jets are gonna be juiced up, man. They're gonna be coming up. They're gonna have Klecko coming out pregame festivities. It's Sunday night. Excuse me. It's Monday night football, and they've got Aaron Rodgers and an improved defense. And wow, they look solid in preseason from a standpoint of scheme and technique. So I think the Jets are going to make this a good game and come out winning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's no way with everything surrounding the Jets. This has to be a win for them. I don't think it's going to be like last year when the Broncos with Russell Wilson faced against the Seahawks. Granted, Nathaniel Hackett's on the Jets coaching staff, so maybe I could be wrong, but I think the Jets will win this.
Yeah, I don't think Nathaniel Hackett will be allowed to make the mistakes he made with the Broncos.
Better not.
Because he's coaching Aaron Rodgers, okay? And it'll remind him of the things that worked versus the things that didn't work. So I'm excited, boy. I'm excited. But hey, this is any parting thoughts, gentlemen? Because I know it's 12:23 in the morning. And Mr. Carroll's got to get his beauty sleep.
Me too. I would say my thoughts on the season is I think this is going to be a really interesting season. I think the AFC will be stronger than the NFC this year. I think you're going to see also more and more discussion, in my opinion, for how it's going to be for this upcoming season. I think you're going to start seeing a little more rumblings about how the NFL is going to be affecting itself internationally speaking, because you already have 3 games in the UK via London, and you have 2 games in Germany via Frankfurt. I think there could be a real chance that the NFL starts talking about more and more team sponsorships as the game is going to continue to keep growing. And I think that's going to be something that we all got to keep an eye on. Not to mention the fact is, who knows how long we're going to stay at 17 games. Well, we know we might even go to 18 games on the road. Bill, you know what? Have you heard about 18 games? You think that's like a long ways away?
I think it's at least the next CBA away. I think they want to get to 18, and I think the NFLPA wants to not get to 18. But eventually money wins, but they'll have to wait until the next collective bargaining agreement to do it.
Not unless it's a second bye week. I think a second bye week has to be included also.
Sure.
What about you?
Gentlemen, that was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
We clocked in at 2 hours, 3 minutes, and 29 seconds and counting. Mm-hmm. And so I will relegate us all to the backstage. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching. We've had a steady flow of people watching, which is really nice. No zeros in any time, which is nice. Nice compliment to where we're at. Nice. Hey, subscribe to Zennie62. Bookmark OaklandNewsNowBlog.com. Bookmark ZennieReport.com. Visit the podcast of Bill Carroll because it's really good. We're making one for Vinny next. So we're marching along. We are the little soldier that could, or whatever. All right.
Little engine that could.
Train, yeah.
It's soldier or engine? What is it?
It's engine.
It's the engine. It's engine.
It's a little engine.
Chugga, 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 chugga.
I like that. Chugga, yeah. There we go. That ends this broadcast. We'll see.